Hello, hello. Look, I'm in a new area. I have moved my desk and stuff so that we can have a little intimate area to make my videos here. So, maybe I'll do more, on camera videos. It sounds a little echoey in here. I'll try to work on that for future videos. Yeah, so I wanted to do the 8 values quiz. So I've done the political compass quiz on this channel already. So now I'm going to do the 8 values quiz, which is better than the political compass in the way that it has more metrics. So it talks about a lot more things other than just two axes, which the political compass has, which I think limits the political compass. So I will do this quiz and we'll see how we go. Oppression by corporations is more of a concern than oppression from governments. That is completely wrong, right? I agree that a large corporation can oppress people, but I don't think that it is worse than a government because you can always leave a corporate, like you can always leave a job, and I know that's not the greatest thing to say. Obviously, people live week to week, all that stuff, but you can always leave a job. You can't, like, a government can arrest you. A government can put you to death, and businesses can't do that because the government is above the business. But I do think that corporations are dangerous left unchecked from the government because at least the government is answerable to us, right? The people, whereas corporations are only answerable to stockholders. So I would go disagree. It is necessary for the government to intervene in the economy to protect consumers. I do agree on this. Not strongly. I do mostly I would like mostly I'd like more free trade around the world, but as long as it's not taken advantage of by corporations, they need to be kept in check. And they're just gonna. It's always a race to the bottom with corporations, right? They're gonna put all their factories in China and India and stuff, and fuck over the Western consumer, right? So I think our governments need to check those people. But I mostly agree. Yeah, so I mostly agree that some protectionism is required. The freer the market, the freer the people. I disagree on this. I just think that the very concept of free market is dangerous because it leads to monopolies. It leads to things like that. And don't get me wrong, I'm not a socialist, right? Well, I'm not a communist. I don't think that we should seize the means of production and everything should be run by the government. But I don't think necessarily a free market its laissez-faire extreme leads to a free people. I don't. It is better to maintain a balanced budget than to ensure welfare for all citizens. Strongly disagree. I think that if you look at Keynesian economics and if you look at modern monetary theory, you'll see that a balanced budget isn't necessarily required. As long as as long as what you are borrowing is benefiting the country for more than you're paying in interest, right? Publicly funded research is more beneficial to the people than leaving it up to the market. Yeah, I totally agree, right? Like we never would have gone to space, if it wasn't for, the government, burning money, or the American government, right? And the Russians and China and whatever, right? But, burning money to get it into space. These big projects are really important. And this, research into, like, drugs and all that stuff is done by, universities and by government research grants and things like that, right? Like, it's so important because the free market will only research things when it's profitable. And you don't know if things are profitable when there's not even the sector there to be created, right? Like, the internet was created by government, right? By government projects. It wasn't created by the free market. The free market didn't go, oh, you know what, we need the internet so we can monetize on that. No, it was created by the free market. It was created by public works. It was created by publicly funded researchers. And look how much it's benefited the economy of the whole world and how it's benefited everyone. Obviously it's beneficial. Tariffs on international trade are important to encourage local production. Yeah, I'm like, as before we talked about the protectionist views on trade. I'm very torn on trade. I think the issue is because it's always a race to the bottom with corporations on who can supply cheaper labor, who can supply all that. So I think more or less, between free developed nations, America, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, mostly European countries, South Africa, right? I think we can have free trade and stuff between these with no tariffs between these countries. But when it comes to places like the developing world that have that multinational corporations can come together and just pay these people fuck all and pocket all the money. It's not fair, right? So you have to keep those businesses in the Western world. It sucks, So but it's and then you have to, you have to give a helping hand to the people who are producing in New Zealand or in America or whatever, instead of producing in China or whatnot. So tariffs are important to help local production. So I do agree on this. From each according to the ability to each according to the needs. So that, this is a Marx quote, right? But like I do agree with it. I do think if you separate this quote from just the generic, the Soviet state, right? If you separate this quote from the Soviet Union and you just think about, what the essence of a social program is, right? Such as the unemployment benefits, such as your superannuation, right? Things that most people agree with, right? And that is what this is, right? Some people need more money, right? We can argue about a meritocracy, whether people need to work harder, people need to get jobs, but some people can't get jobs. Some people even, some people are working poor and they need more money. Some people are elderly or disabled, they need more money, and that is each according to the need. So like this is a true statement, even though it's connected to the Communist Manifesto. It would be best if social programs were abolished in favor of private charity. Completely disagree. This is the stupidest thing ever. So I actually saw like an argument like this at the libertarian debate for president like a few years ago, right? And one of them said we should get rid of Social Security and just have charity for grandmas, right? Either save up your grandmas, save up their money while they're working so they can retire, or if not, the charity people will just come and help them out. But the whole concept of capitalism, the very essence of it is greed, right? Like even libertarians and pro-capitalist people will agree with that it's designed around greed. And now you're saying that people are inherently good and inherently going to give charity. It doesn't make sense. It's not, like neither of those things are compatible with each other. So it's silly. So I strongly disagree on this. Taxes should be increased on the rich to provide for the poor. Strongly agree. Increase top tax brackets, all that stuff on income tax, and then you have to plug up the loopholes so they actually pay their fucking tax. Inheritance is a legitimate form of wealth. I disagree. I agree that some inheritance is fine, right? So you giving your house to your kid, you giving shares to a small company, you handing down a small business, you giving a few $1,000s to your grandkids, whatever, right? But when it comes down to people getting billions of dollars or even millions, millions of dollars who did not earn it, it goes against the whole concept that capitalism is trying to talk about, which is saying it's a meritocracy, which it inherently isn't when there's inheritance going on. There should be a massive inheritance tax. So like every dollar above like $1 million you're inherited people, that's just a random number I've pulled out of my ass. Every dollar above that should be taxed at like 50%, probably more. It's ludicrous that you can just give billions of dollars to your offsprings. It's ridiculous. That means you'd have to incorporate a gifting tax in New Zealand as well, which we don't have. John Key got rid of that. So I disagree. Basic utilities like roads and electricity should be publicly owned. Yep, strongly agree. Yeah, I think things like electric companies, power companies, that's the same thing. I think phone companies, things like that all need to be publicly owned. In New Zealand, they were. The telecom was owned by the government, and fucking David Longy fucking sold it under fucking Rogernomics. Fucking, wait until I'm working on a video about the ACT Party at the moment, and I'll talk about Rogernomics, all that stuff in New Zealand. It's, it's insane, and I think we would be a better place in New Zealand if we'd kept those assets and we hadn't sold them off. There are things that I just don't think the private market can handle, and I think that's healthcare. I think that's electricity. I think that's things that we've decided that people need. And honestly, I'm becoming more and more skeptical of of the private market involved in housing. I think it's ridiculous that we have such a shortage of housing. Something that is so profitable, So people should be building houses, but they're not building them enough. So the free market is not working. The free market isn't working in New Zealand to create enough houses. And there are just a small amount of people that gobble up all the houses because they can afford it and they know that it's going to increase in value in the future. And then, the fucking poor suckers are not being able to get a house. And buying a house is the way to pass down inheritance, right? That's the main way people pass down inheritance, by creating wealth between families and passing down through lineage, is by buying houses and then passing it down, buying land. It's the way. And in New Zealand, we're more and more unable to buy a house. Like, I'm cemented as probably not going to be able to afford a house ever in my life, and like until I get inheritance. And it's ridiculous, right? It's ridiculous. We're creating like an owner class and a renter class. It's stupid. Sorry, I've kind of gone on a tangent here. Yeah, but I strongly agree. Government intervention is a threat to the economy. I disagree. I disagree. I believe in regulation. I believe in the government, getting their hands dirty and deciding how the country needs to be run. But I do agree that over-regulation, over-interventionism is bad. So I would just go agree, disagree, not strongly disagree. Those with a greater ability to pay should receive better healthcare. I'm actually torn, alright, because I believe that healthcare is a right and everyone should get it. But, I don't necessarily disagree with the concept of private hospitals, right? Like, in New Zealand, we have private hospitals, and I think they are better than the public hospitals, right? And that sucks, and more investment needs to go into the public sector, and I guess the private hospitals takes away money from the private sector, right? Which is an issue. Well, it doesn't, right? Does it? Because we don't have like an insurance system. We just have it out in our taxes. So I guess I don't actually have a problem with the people with more money getting better care, but I think that the care that poorer people get should be free at point of service, and should be good. It should be good healthcare. But I don't necessarily think that all healthcare should be free, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm articulating that view well. Quality education is right to all people. Strongly agree. Like, I'm torn about free university in New Zealand, especially since we have this great system of interest-free student loans, which I think is very equitable and very good. But definitely, you have free high school all the way up to year 13, right? So that's 13 years of school fully funded by the taxpayer. Some schools have more money paid through fees. The decile school, decile system in New Zealand is a bit iffy. I could be pro changing that up, but I strongly agree that everyone needs to get a quality education. I don't think we have it now, but I really think that you should be able to get any student and put them in any school and get the same quality of education. That's what I believe. I don't believe that a school in South Auckland should be worse than a school, say, in Takaranga, where I came from, right, where I grew up. A decile 10 school. But I don't think that decile 1 schools, the decile system shouldn't exist. So they should all be the same quality of education. So I strongly agree. The means of production should belong to the workers who use them. I do agree with worker-owned co-ops, but I'm not fully into the concept that all workers should own the means of production, because I do agree with some level of the capitalist notion that people have put up money, they're taking the risk, and that they should reap some reward. But workers need to be compensated. Everyone needs to be able to earn a living wage and be able to do what they want to do with it. I believe in workers' rights. Like strong workers' rights, and such as pay and leave and health and safety, things like that, right? So let's go neutral. I'm not fully on either side of this. The United Nations should be abolished. Strongly disagree. The issue with the United Nations is the fact that the Security Council has Russia and China on it, right? So you can't get shit done. It's because you need all 5 of the big countries to agree with each other on any issue. So the United Nations has no teeth. And because America doesn't recognize international law, the international courts have no teeth. It's ridiculous. So strongly disagree. I think they're good. Military action by our nation is often necessary to protect it. I agree that protecting the country is necessary. I disagree with the notion that, we need to be bombing, Iraqis overseas and stuff. That's not a threat to our nation. So as an example, New Zealand, fought, slightly in Afghanistan and Iraq, which I disagree with. We fought in Vietnam. I heavily disagree with that one. The last legitimate war that New Zealand was in was World War II. I agree with the New Zealand fighting in World War II because that was protecting, New Zealand and as well as their allies who were being actively attacked. I support regional unions such as the European Union. I strongly agree. Dude, if Australia wasn't so fucking conservative, I would be pro, Australasian Union of New Zealand, Australia, and the islands. I would support that. I think it is better. I'm not a full globalist. I don't think that there should be a one, there should be a one government for the whole world. But I do think that New Zealand, Australia, and the islands have more or less the same momentum of where they want to be going and stuff that I think that it should be considered. I don't know. Yeah, the problem is there's just way too many conservatives in Australia. Fuck. But I do agree. It is important to maintain our national sovereignty. This is the concept of the unions and things like that, so I disagree. I think we can give up some of our power to international courts and things like that, right? Things that, we still have control over, so we disagree. A united world government would benefit all mankind. See, I just disagree with that. I think, the problem is because we have such disparity in not only wealth between, the third world and the first world, but also political ideologies and, religious ideologies that get morphed into it. Because, more or less, I think that what New Zealand has is the way that the whole world should operate, right? But I'm not an expansionist to say that you must, do what we say or we'll kill you and then make you do it, right? I don't agree with that, right? So, when you look at places like India or places like Israel who have democracy, but they're so entrenched in religion, and I believe in separation of church and state, and those countries have have democracy, yet so much religion within it that I disagree with it, right? And then you look at places like Saudi Arabia or many African countries which have royalty, a full dictatorship. Look at North Korea, right? Places like that. That is bad, and to convince everyone to be under a secular democratic nation, it's hard, right? And so I disagree. It is more important to retain peaceful relations than further our strength. I agree. New Zealand's not a warring country. I think peace is the way to go. Wars do not need to be justified to other countries. I strongly disagree. I think if you're gonna commit war, you have to have a reason. You have to argue it. That's why I agree in international standards for war, such as under the Geneva Convention, under UN law, things like that, and with the international courts. I think that's all important to make things more peaceful in the world. Military spending is a waste of money. Overall, I think every nation should have some level of a military to protect itself, to protect their allies. But I do agree that America has a ludicrous amount of money in the military, which is stupid. So I would go disagree. It's not a waste of money, but the amount of money America spends is a waste of money. International aid is a waste of money. Strongly disagree. We should be helping people in the third world and stuff, because it is ridiculous that 20 countries in the world have all the wealth, and so much of people are starving and hungry and all that. I'm throwing out food from my fridge all the time that people would be lucky to have, right? And it's ridiculous the amount of resources that is just hoarded into some sects of the world and then not shared equally, right? It's ridiculous. So I strongly disagree. We need to be helping people out. My nation is great. I do agree. I'll strongly agree. I love New Zealand. We have our problems, but when I compare it to the rest of the world, I think it's wow, we've got it good. Research should be conducted on an international scale. I strongly agree, right? We should be working internationally to sort it out. Government should be accountable to the international community. I do agree, not strongly, because I do think sometimes, your country needs to do something that's beneficial to your country, not other countries, right? Such as if you wanted to put in tariffs to protect your workers and other countries didn't like it, I don't think other countries should be able to veto that, I think, at the end of the day, you have sovereignty in your country, but I think that, if you're going to attack another country, you're going to do something like that, you need to have a reason, and when you do shit wrong, I think there needs to be some level of accountability to the international community. So I agree. Even when protesting an authoritarian government, violence is not acceptable. I strongly disagree. I think that some violence is acceptable, even against when going against an authoritarian government, you need to be violent. What are you going to do? Peacefully protest? It doesn't make sense, because they're not going to give up their power. So I don't fully disagree with like the Black Panther movement, in the 60s or whatever, to push radical change in America to get equality for black people. It's important. And I think, you've seen people say that, like, Martin Luther King wouldn't have gotten so far if there wasn't the Black Panther movement, if there wasn't Malcolm X, being more radical, being more violent, it was like a good cop, bad cop type of situation to get the change. So, like, I do disagree. I think violence is an acceptable form of, counter to an authoritarian government. My religious views should be spread as much as possible. Seeing that the fact that I am not religious, I think that everyone should not be religious, because I think it's the truth, right? But I respect people's right to believe what they want, as long as you're not affecting me. That's my social libertarian view, right? I'm not libertarian on economic issues, but on social things, I'm like, do what you want to do, as long as you're not harming me or other people. So, my religious view should be spread as much as possible. Disagree, but the fact that I believe that government should be secular is a separate thing, right? Like, I don't think that everyone should be non-religious, but I think all people should take their religion out of the government. Our nation's values should be spread around the world as much as possible. I do agree with the concept that we should be, teaching people about democracy, teaching people about, freedom and all that stuff, but I don't believe in, say, invading a place and forcing them to do what we say, It is important to maintain law and order. I do agree. The general populace makes poor decisions. Well, seeing that John Key was the Prime Minister for 9 years, I would agree with that. But, I think that generally people are non-informed in politics and stuff, and, sure, people make bad decisions all the time, right? Physician-assisted suicide should be legal. Totally agree. Strongly agree. I voted yes on the referendum for euthanasia in New Zealand. We've passed it. It's great. It's awesome. Sacrificing some civil liberties is important to protecting us from acts of terrorism. Strongly disagree. People should not be reading my emails. People should not be, listening to my phone calls to try to stop a terrorist. You've got other means. Fucking do that. Stay out of my shit. Government surveillance is necessary in the modern world. Like, to some degree, right? Like, I believe in, speed cameras and stuff, right? But I don't agree with, what this question is trying to get at, is the concept of reading my emails, listening to my phone calls. I disagree. Not strongly, because I think that with a court order, you should be able to tap a phone, things like that, right? But, for legitimate reasons, not just, let's listen to everyone like the NSA is doing. The very existence of a state is a threat to liberty. Like, honestly, kinda. So, like, if you look in America, right, there is just an artificial line just drawn between the border of America and Mexico, right? That, like, man did that. That's not natural. We just decided that this is a wealthy area than this area. And it's stupid. And it is against liberty, right? Like, the freedom of property, right, is authoritarian in the sense that you are excluding people from the use of something else because you said so. Because it isn't that you put your heart and soul into it, like John Locke would have said. John Locke said that this land is yours because you've plowed the field, you've planted the grain, things like that, right? But people don't do that. Like, most people do not build their houses. They just paid someone for it and then said, not for you, this is for me. And it's stupid, right? So yes, I think that to some extent, the existence of a state is a threat to liberty, but, rumbly tummy, I hope you couldn't hear that. The existence of a state is a threat to liberty, but I agree that states should probably exist, as like a lesser of two evils type thing. Regardless of political opinions, it is important to side with your country. Strongly disagree. You should criticize your country all the time. It's stupid to just blindly follow. All authority should be questioned. Yeah, sure. Like who put you in charge, right? Let me criticize that. So I agree. Hierarchical state is best. I disagree. Strongly disagree. Yeah, we are all made equal. We equal. I don't believe in God, but we are equal. In to the eyes of God, right? We're all just the same. Why should we have a hierarchy, right? Why should we have noblemen? Why should we have like a caste system such as in India? Why should we have a middle class and a poor and a rich and all that? So I disagree. It is important that the government follows the majority opinion, even if it is wrong. I do disagree. I believe in things such as referendums and stuff, but when push comes to shove, sometimes the masses are stupid and sometimes things need to be done. If the majority of people wanted to kill every person called Ted, I would be against that, right? Like even if 60% of the people wanted that, 51%, wanted that, I'm like, well, that's bad. You can't have that. Like we don't have, we don't have supreme law in New Zealand, such as in other countries, in the constitution and stuff. We don't have that. But I do think that the government should sometimes pass laws that the majority of people don't like. But, more or less, I do want democracy and people to say what... People should be able to say what should happen in the world. The stronger the leadership, the better. Like, kinda, right? Like, I don't think this is a weird thing to say. Like, if you look at, like, a movement like the Occupy Wall Street movement, the problem with that movement was they didn't have a leadership. They didn't have, like, someone to talk to, they didn't have someone to negotiate with when like they want to get their stuff done. So that's why it didn't go anywhere. The Occupy Wall Street movement didn't do anything. So that's why you do need some strong leadership in some level, Democracy is more than a decision-making process. Is it? Like, I don't know. Like, is that not what it is? I don't really know what this question wants me to say. I'm going to go neutral, because I'm not 100% sure where this question wants me to go. Like, is democracy a religion? Like, what do you want me to say? Environmental regulations are essential. Strongly agree. Because according to laissez-faire capitalists, corporations will not protect the environment until it is profitable to them. Because why would they? Why would they do that? So the government needs to do it. It's not fucking rocket science. By your definition, no one's going to protect the environment, and protecting the environment, pretty dope. So I strongly agree. A better world will come from automation, science, and technology. Totally agree, right? Like, let's look at automation, right? Even though people are going to be put out of jobs, I think it is better to not work than to work. Funnily enough, because guess what? Most people have manual labor jobs. Most people are driving cars. Most people are pulling levers. Most people are digging holes. That is bad. That is something that a computer can do, right? That a machine can do, that we're not going to have to do. And by trying to protect those jobs in this like idealistic way to just keep capitalism alive, to not have to have the hard conversation about how we're going to need to transfer from this you work and you earn money to having like something like a UBI, or something like everyone's basic human rights and basic needs are covered already before you do any jobs or anything like that. So yeah, I strongly agree that automation, science, and technology will make a better world, but it's going to need to come hand in hand with social change. Children should be educated in religious and traditional values. Strongly disagree. Get all religion out of schools. Traditions are of no value on their own. I kind of agree. The very concept of a tradition, I think is bad. Just doing something for the sake of doing it, I think is bad. But, I think everything should be questioned. I think everything should be considered, and if things are bad, we should change it, not just do it for tradition's sake. So I do agree. Religion should play no role in government. Strongly agree. Secular all the way, baby. Churches should be attacked the same way as other institutions are attacked. I think churches should need to prove that they are a charity and they do charitable work, and then they need to be regulated as a charity. Currently, they're not fully like that. They are mostly, but yeah, I agree that they need to be taxed more, because you do see these mega churches such as in America and stuff, where they're just pocketing the money and stuff and just saying, it's for religious benefit. But, to a non-religious person myself, there's no avenue for me, right? How, like, if I just want to preach the concepts of secularism, I'm not going to get a tax break for that. I'm not going to get anything like that. So that is discrimination against me, is it not? That there is no avenue for me to get this tax break system of me sharing my values. Yeah, so I think it's kind of silly. You need to be showing that you're feeding the hungry, that you're clothing the homeless, all that stuff. Climate change is currently one of the greatest threats to our way of life. I strongly agree, right? Especially, I'm an island nation, man. We're going to be losing land left, right, and center in the coming years, and it sucks that people aren't ever going to get their head screwed onto it. Like, it's really annoying. It is important that we work to unite the world to combat climate change. Strongly agree. I think climate change needs to be combated at a worldwide issue, because most of the pollution is done by countries like China and the United States and things like that, right? Whereas in New Zealand, we can do all we want with making New Zealand carbon neutral, all that jazz, banning plastic bags like we've done, which I agree with, but it's not going to do fuck all if these bigger countries aren't doing shit. So we need to work internationally to solve an international crisis. That just makes sense, right? Society was better many years ago than it is now. Well, COVID has put a little bullet into this, right? But I think that life gets better the further we go on, right? Like Ricky Gervais said this, that every year is better than the last year, because we're getting better, we're getting more freedom, we're getting more technology, all this stuff, right? So I do agree that things are better than they were a few years ago, but COVID's kind of put a little blip, maybe. It is important that we maintain the traditions of the past. It's tricky, right? Because I don't disagree with all traditions, right? I like tradition. I like doing things that are fun. But tradition for tradition's sake is bad. Doing things just because we've always done it is bad. We need to question it. We need to consider why it's there. So I disagree. It is important that we think in the long term, beyond our lifespans. I do agree on this. Look at climate change, right? We need to be looking out for future generations to look after this earth. We need to be caring about our children, our grandchildren, and so on. And humanity past us. I agree. Reason is more important than maintaining our culture. Strongly agree. I think our history and our culture and our religions, they are useless if we have a better alternative. Just saying this is how we've always done it is bad. It is bad. It is regressive. It is not the way that our society should function. We need to look at all evidence, and we need to go with it like that. So, for example, in 1996 in New Zealand, we changed our voting system to the mixed member proportional government, the mixed member proportional system. It is great. It is one of the best voting systems out there in the world. It is great. And guess what? Before that, we had first past the post, like the UK and Canada and whatever, right? And that is a bad voting system. But people keep it because that's how they've always voted. And it's great to weigh up the evidence and change accordingly. It's the way to go. Strongly agree. Drug use should be legalized or decriminalized. Strongly agree. Legalize and tax all drugs. All drugs. I need to make a video on this because it is something I believe so strongly. So strongly. It goes against my liberty to not be able to shoot up heroin. It does. And you might go, oh, Shay, you're gonna go commit violence on heroin. Arrest me then. Arrest me if I kill someone. Arrest me. If I've done something illegal, arrest me. If on drugs I do something bad, arrest me. But, if I am doing drugs and I'm not hurting anyone, doing the drug is not a crime. Should not be a crime. I am not harming anyone else. Only myself. Drinking alcohol only harms me. Me. So, fuck you for trying to get into my life and telling me what I can and can't do. Same-sex marriage should be illegal. Of course, it's stupid. It sucks that we might be having this conversation in America soon. It seems like they might be looking into making it illegal again in some states, and I think it really sucks. It is a great thing that we did. In 2013, I think we legalized in New Zealand. Great. Should have come way sooner. And yeah, it's a no-brainer. No cultures are superior to others. It's tricky, right? Because like, what is a culture? I believe that, I believe that New Zealand is better than Australia. Like, is that saying that a culture is better? It's not like I'm saying white people are better than black people, right? Like, it's tricky, right? I'm gonna go neutral. It's a tricky question. Sex outside of marriage is immoral. Strongly disagree. It is, this is one of those things that's like, this is what the ancient text said in the past, so that means we must do it forever. Like, do what you want, bro. Libertarian all the way. If we accept migrants at all, it is important that they assimilate to our culture. I do agree, to some extent. I agree. I believe that a melting pot society is important. I love that people from all over the world can come together and, we can incorporate our foods and our culture and our societies together. But we need to communicate as a society. So I think that one language is important. Not to say that I think their languages are irrelevant and they need to get rid of them, but I think that having a language, and more or less, that is English, that maybe that is something that is cemented as privilege to me, because using privilege is kind of cringe, but by saying everyone must learn my language instead of me going, well, allow me to learn Spanish or whatever, right? But, if they're coming to New Zealand, right, they should learn the languages of this country. Abortion should be prohibited in most cases. Strongly disagree. I think there should be no laws saying when you can have an abortion. That is between you and your doctor. I don't care. Once that baby is out of your body, that is a protected citizen. Before then, hands are clean. Do whatever you want. Gun ownership should be prohibited for those without a valid reason. I agree. I think that, there is no legitimate reason to having a weapon that is designed to kill people. That's what it is, I think, people like hunters and pest control and police need weapons, but I don't give into this American concept that everyone needs to be armed. I support single-payer universal healthcare. I agree with universal healthcare. Would I necessarily say I want single-payer? Well, yeah, that is what it is, right? Yeah. Sorry, the terminology kind of stuffs me up because America is so fucked without, universal healthcare. Prostitution should be illegal. Strongly disagree. Let me do what I want with my body and let me exchange money for it. There is no reason, there is no reason why it should be illegal. Maintaining family values is essential. I disagree. What is a family value? It's such an arbitrary concept. It's rooted in the fact that what we've done in the past is the correct way to do it, and we must do that forever. I think that is a wrong way to look at history, a wrong way to look at how we should live our society. I've mentioned that many times in this. I guess because that's what a lot of this quiz is doing, right? It's saying if I'm like a traditionalist or if I, a reformer type thing, right? So, I disagree. To chase progress at all costs is dangerous. No, I disagree. Progress is important. Strongly disagree. It's not dangerous. It's important. Genetic modification is a force for good, even in humans. I'm torn, I'm not 100%. Should we be able to change the sex of our children, like before birth? Should we be allowed to change their eye color? Should we be allowed to change their, hair color, their ethnicity? It's tricky, right? Because I'm like, I believe that we should be living in a society where everyone is equal, right? But, is it like, it's not genocide if you just change. It's so tricky. It's very tricky. I'm gonna go neutral. I don't have a cemented idea on genetic modification. Like, I flip flop on this all the time. We should open our borders to immigrants. Strongly agree. Obviously you need to have the right amount of infrastructure and things like that in a country to facilitate it. But yeah, it should be an international effort to help people out. Governments should be as concerned about foreigners as they are about their own citizens. I disagree. I believe that we should take an international stance on, say, refugee crises, on foreign aid, helping people out. But at the end of the day, when I pay my taxes, that's going towards helping me, right? And helping my society of people who are paying the taxes, right? I don't pay taxes to help the people who don't pay the taxes, right? It doesn't make sense, right? Even though obviously I pay a disproportional amount of taxes to what I get in because I'm a student, I earn less money. I don't earn that much money. I'm on a lower tax bracket than people who pay more money. So yeah, so I disagree. All people, regardless of factors like culture or sexuality, should be treated equally. Strongly agree. Of course, you're an asshole if you don't agree. It is important that we further my group's goals above all else. I disagree, even though I do think that, we've got good ideas. We should spread it in the way of convincing people, not in the way of forcing people to follow my group's agenda. Oh, we're done. Let's have a look. So there's multiple axes, and then we'll go through them all, right? So on the economic axis, I'm way more towards equality than markets. Of course I am. Diplomatic axes, I'm peaceful, more towards world than nationality. Civil axis, liberty over authoritarian, obviously, over authority, sorry. And then way more to progress over tradition, right? Obviously. So this totally makes sense to me. Oh, see, it this is exactly how I would label myself. A libertarian socialist. This is word for word what I call myself, right? Titles are hard. It's hard to put you down into a box and say what you are, things like that. This is exactly me. Libertarian in the sense that an individual should be able to do what they want with their own bodies, with their own lives, as long as they're not harming other people. But socialist in the sense that I think that everyone needs to have an equal footing in life. I believe in a meritocracy, of course, but to an extent. I believe that everyone should be able to have shelter and housing and food and water and entertainment. I think that everyone should be living a good life, regardless of their work status, regardless of their education, regardless of all that. So I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know what you thought about my answers on these. If you disagree, let me know. Also, any other quizzes like this that you would like me to take. Some more easy to do videos. As I said, I'm working on a video about the Act Party, but I want to read a couple books about it. So we'll see how long it takes me to read some books because I don't really read. So thanks for watching.